There is a resilient tree growing across almost every state in America that produces a lifelong supply of vinegar. The fruit drops to the ground every autumn and it ferments into vinegar on its own. Nobody taught it how. Nobody needs to help it. The industrial vinegar market moves over $1 billion a year selling you a product this one tree makes for free. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly which tree it is, where to find it, and the method your great-grandparents used to never buy vinegar again. Hi, this is Harry, and welcome to Garden Explained with Harry. You have seen this tree 1,000 times. It grows in vacant lots behind strip malls. It grows along chain-link fences next to highways. It grows at the edge of parking lots where the asphalt cracks and nobody mows. Cities pay crews to cut it down. Homeowners spray it with herbicide. Homeowners associations send letters demanding its removal. Every fall, the fruit drops onto sidewalks and driveways and nobody picks it up. Children throw it at each other during recess. Dogs walk around it. The fruit sits there small and hard and sour, and eventually it rots. Or at least that is what you think is happening. What is actually happening is chemistry. That small sour fruit contains enough natural sugar to begin alcoholic fermentation the moment its skin breaks open on the ground. No sugar added. The wild yeast living on the surface of that fruit, the same white dusty bloom you can see if you hold one up to the light, activates on contact with the juice. No starter culture. Within days, alcohol forms. Within weeks, bacteria from the open air land on the liquid and begin converting that alcohol into acetic acid. No factory, no equipment, not even a container. The puddle of rotting fruit at the base of that tree is not decomposing. It is becoming vinegar. This has been happening in ditches and meadows and forest floors for longer than human civilization has existed. And nobody told you. The tree is a wild or feral crabapple, member of the Mollusc genus, and not the decorative kind that garden centers sell for spring blossoms. The feral kind. The one that seeds itself into forgotten corners of every landscape in the temperate world. They thrive from Maine to Oregon. The one that produces small, dense, mouth-puckering fruit so sour that most people assume it is useless. That sourness is not a flaw. It is the entire mechanism. The malic acid concentration in a wild crabapple is high enough to shut down harmful bacteria without any human intervention. The environment inside that fruit is a fortress. Only the right microorganisms survive. The ones that make vinegar. Every homestead in colonial New England kept crabapple trees, not for eating, not for decoration, for vinegar. Before refrigeration, before canning factories, before grocery stores with plastic bottles lined up on shelves, households needed acid. Vinegar preserved vegetables through 6-month winters. Vinegar cleaned kitchen surfaces when soap was expensive. Vinegar dressed wounds when doctors were 3 days away on horseback. Vinegar was so essential that it functioned as currency in some rural barter economies. A family without vinegar was a family without preservation, and the cheapest, most reliable source of vinegar on the entire continent was the wild crabapple tree already growing at the edge of the property. No one bought sugar to start the process. No one ordered cultures from a catalog. No one built anything. The tree and the open air provided everything. This was not an American invention. The tradition runs much deeper. In England, long before the colonies existed, the sour juice pressed from wild crab apples had its own name, verjuice. For centuries, English households used verjuice in cooking and preservation the same way we use vinegar today. When Norman settlers crossed the English Channel after 1066, they brought with them an advanced tradition of cider making and fruit fermentation that merged with existing English practices. A vast portion of the European household vinegar tradition was built on wild and orchard fruits like apples and grapes, offering a natural alternative to the heavier beer and grain-based vinegars common in northern regions. Fruit that fell from trees nobody planted, vinegar that formed without a single purchased ingredient. In the mountains of Appalachia, where commercial goods arrived late or never arrived at all, crabapple vinegar survived well into the 20th century. Families in West Virginia and eastern Kentucky and the hollers of North Carolina passed the method down without writing anything on paper. There was nothing to write. Collect the fruit after it softens in early autumn. Crush it in a wooden bucket. Add enough water to cover the mash. Leave it alone. Wait. No sugar. The fruit had enough. No starter. The yeast was on the skin. No factory. A bucket in the corner of the kitchen was the entire operation. No equipment beyond what every household already owned. The tree did the chemistry. The family just waited and collected the result. But if this was common knowledge for centuries, something had to happen to erase it. And something did. In the early 1800s, a fast process method for producing vinegar changed everything. Manufacturers discovered they could trickle cheap grain alcohol over wood shavings packed into tall towers. Bacteria colonized the shavings and converted the alcohol to vinegar in days instead of months. Factories scaled. Costs collapsed. Suddenly, distilled white vinegar could be produced in enormous volumes from industrial grain alcohol for almost nothing. It was clear. It was uniform. It tasted the same every single time. It came in bottles with labels and prices that undercut anything a household could justify making by hand. Crêpe Appel vinegar was none of those things. It was cloudy. It tasted different depending on the tree, the season, the weather during fermentation. It varied from batch to batch in a way that factories considered a defect. The market chose consistency. Households stopped bothering. Within 2 generations, the knowledge that had sustained families for centuries simply fell out of daily practice, not because it stopped working, because something cheaper and more uniform showed up on a store shelf. The irony is that crab apple vinegar needed no factory to begin with. The factory was the solution to a problem that wild fruit had already solved for free. Then came the second blow. In the middle of the 20th century, agricultural extension services funded by the United States Department of Agriculture began a systematic campaign to remove wild and feral apple trees from the American landscape. The justification was disease management. Wild crab apples served as reservoirs for fire blight and cedar apple rust, 2 diseases that threatened the commercial apple orchards, generating real tax revenue. County agents walked property lines with landowners and identified feral mollusk trees for removal. Eradication programs offered free cutting and herbicide application. Millions of wild crabapple trees across the Midwest and Northeast were cut down, poisoned at the stump, or bulldozed into burn piles. The tree that had provided free vinegar to every generation before yours was reclassified as a pest, an agricultural nuisance, a weed tree. Extension bulletins from the 1950s and 60s read like wanted posters. Remove all wild apple within a 1-mile radius of commercial orchards. The goal was protecting the industry. The side effect was erasing the oldest vinegar source on the continent. Follow the money and the pattern becomes obvious. Wild crabapple vinegar requires no factory, no bottling line, no distribution network, no brand, no patent, no licensing agreement. It cannot be owned. It requires no sugar because the fruit provides its own. It requires no starter culture because the yeast lives on the skin. It requires no equipment because a jar and a cloth are not equipment. They are things people already have. A tree that makes vinegar for free generates no quarterly revenue for anyone. No corporation benefits when a family discovers a feral crab apple behind the garage and fills a year of vinegar jars from a single autumn harvest. No shareholder value increases when a grandmother teaches her grandchildren how to crush fruit in a bucket and wait. This is not conspiracy. This is economics. Systems promote what systems profit from. A self-fermenting wild tree that requires no inputs, no maintenance, and no annual purchase is invisible to every commercial incentive that drives modern food production. The knowledge did not die because someone attacked it. It died because no one had a financial reason to keep it alive. But the tree never stopped. It is still out there. It is still dropping fruit every October in every state from Maine to Oregon. And the process your great-grandmother used still works exactly the same way today. Wild crab apples grow across USDA hardiness zones 3 through 9. That covers nearly the entire continental United States, most of southern Canada, and equivalent climates across Europe and northern Asia. Look for them in places humans have neglected. Fence lines behind old farmhouses, the edges of state forest land, abandoned orchards where the commercial varieties died but the rootstock survived and reverted to wild form. Vacant lots in small towns, railroad rights-of-way, the margins of suburban parks where the mowing crew does not reach. The fruit is small, usually 1 to 2 inches across, often yellow-green, sometimes flushed red or orange depending on the variety. It is hard when unripe and softens as autumn progresses. Taste one. If it makes your mouth pucker and your eyes close, you have found exactly what you need. That sourness is malic acid, and it is the reason this works without any additives. Harvest after the fruit has softened on the branch, but before hard frost turns it to mush. Late September through mid-October in most regions. You do not need to be selective. Windfalls are fine. Bruised fruit is fine. The microorganisms you need are already living on the skin. Imperfection is not a problem here. It is the engine. Crush the fruit. Use your hands. Use a wooden mallet. Use a clean bucket and a piece of lumber. Do not peel. Do not core. Do not remove seeds. The skin carries the wild yeast colonies that start fermentation. No starter culture purchased. No packet torn open. The culture has been living on that fruit since before you found the tree. Place the crushed fruit in a wide-mouthed ceramic crock or a food-safe plastic bucket. Add enough clean water to just cover the mash. Do not add sugar. Wild crab apples contain enough natural sugar to fuel the entire fermentation without help. This is the point most people cannot believe. The fruit does not need you to feed it anything. It feeds itself. Cover the vessel with a cloth secured by a rubber band or string, not a lid. The process needs air. Within 2 to 5 days, you will see bubbles forming in the mash. You will smell something sharp and sweet like hard cider. This is stage 1. The wild yeast on the fruit skin is converting the sugars into alcohol. You did not add this yeast. You did not buy it. It was already there, waiting on the surface of the fruit, the same way it has been waiting for millions of years before anyone invented a packet of commercial yeast. Let stage 1 continue for 1 to 3 weeks. Stir the mash once a day to prevent mold on the surface. When the bubbling slows significantly, strain out all the solid material through cheesecloth or a fine mesh bag. Squeeze out as much liquid as possible. Discard the pulp or compost it. Transfer the strained liquid into a clean, wide-mouthed jar or crock. Cover again with cloth. Set it in a warm place with decent air circulation. Now you wait for stage 2. Acetobacter, a family of bacteria present in virtually every breath of outdoor air, will colonize the surface of the liquid. You did not buy this bacteria. You did not order it. It arrived the same way it has arrived for every batch of vinegar made in the last 10,000 years, through the air. Over the next several days, a thin film will form on top. This is the mother of vinegar. It looks like a pale, rubbery disc floating on the surface. Do not disturb it, do not poke it, do not panic. It is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. It is converting the alcohol into acetic acid. It is turning cider into vinegar. No factory involved, no equipment beyond a jar and a piece of cloth. This second stage takes 4 to 8 weeks depending on temperature and air exposure. Taste it periodically. When it tastes like vinegar, sharp and sour with no residual sweetness or boozy smell, it is done. Strain it one more time, pour it into clean bottles. It will keep indefinitely without refrigeration. You have just made vinegar the same way humans made it for thousands of years before anyone built a factory. You added no sugar, you bought no culture, you used no special equipment, you needed no facility, a tree, a jar, a cloth, and time. That is the entire operation. One mature wild crab apple tree produces hundreds of pounds of fruit in a single season. A tree that no one planted, a tree that no one watered, a tree that no one fertilized or sprayed or pruned. One autumn harvest from one forgotten tree produces enough vinegar to supply a household for an entire year. Cleaning, cooking, pickling, preserving, salad dressing, weed control in the garden, all of it from a tree that most people consider garbage. The tree does not need your care. It does not need your permission. It does not need a purchase order or subscription or a monthly delivery service. It fruits every single year. It lives for 50 years or longer. It seeds itself into new ground without asking. One tree discovered once provides vinegar for a lifetime, and its offspring provide vinegar for generations you will never meet. The global vinegar industry sells billions of liters per year. Mass-produced industrial white vinegar, fermented from subsidized commodity grain alcohol, fills most of those plastic jugs. Produced in factories powered by fossil fuels, shipped across oceans, stacked in warehouses, trucked to grocery stores, and sold to people who have a wild crabapple tree growing within walking distance of their front door. The industry needed factories and supply chains and equipment and additives to do what one wild tree does with nothing at all. While the factories scaled and the extension agents cut and the grocery stores lined their shelves with plastic, the crabapple kept dropping fruit. It kept fermenting in ditches nobody checks. It kept making vinegar at the base of its own trunk, where the fallen fruit split open and the yeast caught the sugar and the bacteria caught the alcohol, and the whole ancient cycle repeated itself without a single human being paying attention. No sugar added, no starter culture, no factory, no equipment. It has been doing this longer than any industry on Earth has existed, and every October it does it again.